Hi everybody. I'm going to make a little video here to show you how to solve systems of equations using the substitution method. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work through this problem and then I'll go back through the problem and tell you some of the more important steps and why we do those things. So step one is to pick one equation and pick one variable. And you are going to solve for that variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this y right here. Now I'll rewrite this equation. 3x plus y is equal to negative 19. And when I say solve for this y, I mean we're going to get it alone on this side of the equal sign. We're just going to get it by itself. So to do that, I'm going to have to subtract 3x from both sides of this equation. So let's see here. This cancels out. I'm left with y is equal to negative 19 minus 3x. Now, I have now an expression here, this negative 19 minus 3x, an expression for y in terms of x. Right, I'm just going to keep going with the problem, and we'll talk about what that does later. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to plug this expression, we're going to substitute this right here in for the y in our other equation. X plus 2 parentheses, and here's where we put this expression here. Negative 19 minus 3x. This is equal to negative 3. So everything is the same about this equation. I just substituted this expression for y. We're going to distribute here to get rid of our parentheses so we can combine like terms. 2 times negative 19 is negative 38. 2 times negative 3x is negative 6x. And this is equal to negative 3. Now we can combine like terms. Negative 5x. X minus 6x is negative 5x. And I'm going to add 38 to both sides to get this 5x by itself. Negative 5x is equal to 38 minus 3 is, 38 minus 3 is 35. Okay, divide by negative 5. Solve for x, and we get that x is equal to negative 7. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and take this here. That's terrible. Let's try that again. That's important. Okay, x is negative 7. Now to solve for y, what we're going to want to do is plug this negative 7 back into one of these equations to solve for y. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one here. I'm just going to write it. Negative 7, that's me plugging in for this x, plus 2y is equal to negative 3. Add 7 to both sides. That cancels this out. 2y is equal to 4. Divide by 2. Y is equal to 2. All right, and that's our solution here. This x and this y can be plugged into both of these original equations. So if I substitute negative 7 in for this x and 2 in for this y, it'll make both of these equations true. And that's what we want. We want a solution to the system, not just one of these equations, but to the system. All right, now, what we're really doing is when we plug in this negative 19 minus 3x over here, we are eliminating a variable. Okay, that's very important. We want to get one equation with one variable. That way we can apply our algebra rules and we can solve for that variable. Okay, so that's one example. Let's try a little more complicated example here. Okay, now in this case you can see the difference between this one and the last problem is I have coefficients for every variable, which makes this a little bit difficult. Now I'm going to go ahead and solve this the hard way first, and then I'll go back and I'll do it again, and I'll show you an easy way of doing this. Or an easier way. Something to look for at least. Okay, so the first step is the same. Everything is the same. The first step is the same. We pick a variable from one of these equations. I'm going to pick this x, and we want to get this x alone. Okay, so we're going to solve for x. Okay, so I want to get this x alone. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 3y from both sides of the equation. And I get, that cancels this out, 2x equals 1 minus 3y. Now to get x alone, I have to divide by 2. Okay, there's me dividing by 2. And I get that x is equal to 1 minus 3y over 2. Okay, great. So we got a fraction here that we're going to have to substitute for x in the other equation. Now that's what makes this a little bit more complicated than the last problem, but it's still doable. So let's go ahead and do that. Say 5, here's me substituting, parentheses, 1 minus 3y over 2 plus 9y is equal to negative 2. And we're just going to go ahead and go through this and solve this like normal. I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 2 to get rid of this fraction. So I'll multiply both sides of this equation by 2, and I will get, do I want to distribute here? No, that's fine. I'll multiply both sides by 2. Okay, so multiply this by 2 and multiply this by 2, and we get 5 times 1 minus 3y. The 2 cancels the 2 in the denominator, plus 18y is equal to negative 4. Okay, now distribute here to get rid of my parentheses. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 5 times negative 3, y is negative 15y, plus 18y is equal to negative 4. Okay, combine like terms here. We get 5 plus 3y is equal to negative 4. Now, I usually like to keep my equal signs so they match up, but for some reason I get performance anxiety on these videos. I'm sitting here in a room by myself, but getting performance. Anyway, all right, so we subtract 5 on both sides of the equation. And we get 3y is equal to negative 9. I'm going to shrink this up a little bit to get a little bit more room. And finally, dividing by 3, we get y is equal to negative 3. Okay, great. So we solve for y. Now, to get my x, we're just going to plug this negative 3 into, I think this equation looks a little bit easier. So we'll say, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit to give some room. That should be plenty of room. Okay, so now we're going to say 2x plus 3 parentheses negative 3. That's my y that I just plugged in. Plugged in this negative 3 for this y is equal to 1. And let's see here, we've got 2x, 3 times negative 3 is minus 9. And this is equal to 1. Okay, add 9 to both sides. And we get 2x is equal to 10, divide by 2, we get x is equal to 5. Okay, so here's my solution. X is 5, y is negative 3. So it's a bit more work. There's more places to make mistakes when you have a fraction like this that you have to substitute in. But the idea is the same. We need to substitute an expression for x in terms of y into our other equation. And what that does is that cancels out an x, and it gives us one equation with all y's. And then we can just go ahead and do what we normally do to solve those types of equations. Okay, now I could have made this a little bit easier on myself, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now to show you what you can look out for to make these a little bit easier. All right. So let's say that instead of choosing x here, I choose y. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. 2x plus 3y is equal to 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this y by itself. And there's a reason for that. And we'll talk about it in a second. Subtract 2x from both sides. 3y is equal to 1 minus 2x divide by 3. We get that y is equal to 1 minus 2x over 3. Okay, we're going to take this. I don't want to circle that yet. That's not a solution. We're going to take this expression for x and plug it in for this y here. So we have 5x plus 9 times parentheses 1 minus 2x over 3. Okay, equals -2. So I just took this y out, plugged this expression in for that y there. Substituted. That's why we called this the substitution method. Okay, now what happens here is you can see that when I multiply 9 times this fraction, it's going to cancel out the 3 in the denominator. Great, that saves me a step, and it saves me, another step that I could potentially make a mistake on. So if you look out for that, if you look for factors, coefficients that are factors of each other, then you might be able to save yourself some trouble. Okay, so I chose 3y so that I could multiply by 9 and cancel out this 3. Okay, so now I have 5x plus 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times -2x is -6x. And this is equal to -2. Combine like terms. -x plus 3 is equal to -2. Subtract 3 from both sides. We get -x is equal to -5. -2 minus 3 is equal to -5. And then multiply by -1 on both sides, and you get x is equal to 5, which is what we got in the first place. Okay, the first time we did this problem. And sure enough, if we plug this in here, you'll get, what was it, -3 for y. So just something to watch out for. If you can save yourself the trouble, pick the fraction that will cancel out when you multiply it by the coefficient when you substitute. Oh, that sounds like a mess. All right, well, there you have it. If you have any questions, let me know.